Welcome, Wanderer. You call upon the Obsidian Grimoire once more. Its pages are heavy with anguish and terror. I am the Keeper, cursed to guard its words and speak what time would see forgotten, to guide you into the darkness where memory and myth entwine. Come closer and hear a tale that longs to be remembered.
In a golden city of canals and soaring stone facades, Chief Magistrate Lucien issued a decree that reshaped the very soul of its people. Mourning was outlawed, grief branded as weakness, tears as treason. Sadness, he declared, is a stain upon our city's shining reputation. 20 years passed, and the law that was meant to suppress grief instead magnified it. For what is joy, if grief is not there to remind us of its rarity? The city learned to grin under duress, while its suppressed grief crawled below ground and grew roots in the dark. Rumor told of a secret society of moirologists performing forbidden funerals in the catacombs. These mourners for hire called themselves the Nocturn Choir. By day they were nobles and courtiers. By night they descended the catacombs with candles in hand, their dirges rising, their voices mourning the forgotten dead. In a small garret overlooking the canal, a seamstress named Serafina looked out her window. Beneath her calm posture, grief churned like water in a storm. Only days ago, her sister was alive, laughing beside her work table, humming lullabies as the sunset sparkled over the canals. Now the silence felt heavier than any garment she had ever sewn. The anti-grieving laws had been in place since she was a child. She grew up knowing tears were dangerous, that sorrow must be swallowed, not spoken. She had nodded along, believing it was harsh but survivable, until loss found her. Only now did she understand the true cruelty of the decree. Mourning was not a weakness. It was a need, a weight inside the chest that demanded somewhere to go. She never imagined grief would be this difficult. She never imagined it would steal her breath, slow her hands, or make the sound of laughter in the streets feel like a knife. For the first time, Serafina felt the law tightening around her like a noose. To lose someone and be forbidden to cry, that was a punishment worse than death. And so, she stared out the window, one hand pressed over her heart, wondering how much longer she could hold her sorrow in without breaking. Everything changed the night she noticed the Nocturn Choir outside her window. They had heard of her sister's death. She felt their eyes on her. They never spoke, only surfaced from time to time, listening to the tears she dared release into her pillow. When they finally offered to recruit her, she agreed. Serafina looked at the black medallion on her sewing table. Etched upon it was the insignia of the Nocturn Choir. She had been newly recruited not just for her skill with needle and thread, but for the heaviness she carried in her chest. Sorrow, they told her, was credential enough. Tonight, she was called to her first gathering. She was summoned to take on a secret task. Serafina wrapped her shawl tight and slipped into the night. Cloaked in shadow, she followed a hidden canal path until she found a narrow passage to a forgotten archway where a torch burned blue. She held up the medallion, iron bolts clicked, and a hidden door opened. She descended beneath the city. The catacombs greeted her with the smell of damp earth and wax. Candles flickered within carved niches. Black-laced figures bowed their heads as she approached. Dozens of masked figures stood in a circle of candlelight. At the center, a man in a gold and purple porcelain mask named Benoit addressed them. Lucien's youngest son, Damien, is dead, he announced, and the magistrate himself has come to us, begging for a funeral. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Benoit spat on the floor. A hypocrite, but we'll give him his wish. He turned to Serafina. You will sew the burial garments, a black velvet drape embroidered with silver stars for the boy. a veil of mourning for his mother. Benoit's voice hardened. Lucien thinks to bury his son, but it is we who will bury his law. During the funeral, we'll march through the streets in protest. When the night of the funeral came, the catacombs filled with low chanting. Lucien and his wife sat next to their son's coffin. The mourners' voices trembled through the chamber, at first sorrowful, then sharp. Beneath the sobs, Serafina heard words that slowly became audible. She heard her sister's name called, and at once she knew what they were saying. The names of those who died but were never mourned, repeated over and over again. Benoit suddenly grasped the coffin. "Enough," he said, voice echoing against the stone. "Your law has choked this city long enough. Grief is not a crime, and tonight, something must change." Lucien and his wife's eyes widened in disbelief, as though the world had suddenly tilted. They froze in place, their faces pale with fear and confusion. "Benoit, be sensible. Don't do anything reckless," Lucien warned, his voice trembling with uncertainty. Benoit walked forward through the ring of mourners, the small coffin held firmly in his arms as the crowd parted in reverent silence. Lucien's protests echoed behind them. He and his wife were restrained. In his heart, Benoit knew this was the moment he had waited for. His defiance of the law had to spark change, and if it cost him his life, so be it. One by one, the mourners emerged into the moonlit square, veiled in black lace, torches blazing. Their chant rang through the sleeping city. "Young Damien has perished. Grieve, golden city, weep what you've lost." Citizens gathered at windows, drawn by the sound. At first they recoiled, but then, like a dam breaking, sobs spread through the crowd. People clutched one another and wept, mourning not only the boy but years of enforced joy. Tears glittered like jewels on every face. Lucien shouted for silence, for guards, but even the guards were crying. He fell to his knees, his mask of power dissolving into grief. "Stop," he pleaded, voice breaking. "Please, stop." Benoit approached, holding the torch high. "For your son," he said, "and for all those buried in silence." The mourning went on for hours, people using this moment to heal and support one another. By dawn, the city was quiet again. Bells tolled, not in celebration, but in mourning. For the first time in years, they were allowed to ring. In the days that followed, the Nocturn Choir's banners hung openly from bridges. Funerals filled the waterways, each one a hymn of healing. The law forbidding grief was abolished, not by decree, but by the people's hearts. Lucien vanished soon after. Some said he took refuge in the catacombs, tending graves in silence. Others swore they heard his voice among the choir's laments. Serafina became the city's most sought-after seamstress of mourning garb. "Grief," she told her apprentices, "is not weakness. It is love that has nowhere left to go." And so, peace returned to the city, not through joy, but through the sacred right to weep. Some nights, when fog rolls in and the bells grow still, people say they can still hear the Nocturn Choir singing beneath the streets.
The tale is told, and the burden returns to me. The grimoire closes, yet sorrow clings to those who listen. Beware thy path, lest the dark take you. Until we meet again at the turning of another page.